So I've got two different things that I wanted to babble about. One is I frequently talk about it doesn't matter how cobbled together and at the very beginning of your project it is. Go ahead, talk about it. I tell people this lots. And someone just said to me, I was like, well, okay, you've got that. It's half done. Talk about it. I'm like, okay. This is trash rescue. There was no way that this could just be thrown away. And one of my bosses has just got on his desk a little device that is associated with his computer that pays attention to something that he does on his computer, and it changes its colors so that he can say, you can walk by his office and know, oh, the light's red, so don't talk to Barry right now. Or the light's green, he's open to conversation. And so if he's on the phone, it can be difficult to tell whether this is on the phone and he really needs all of his focus on it, or if he's on the phone and, yes, for goodness sake, please interrupt me. And so I thought, hey, that's a great idea. And thank you. And so I had this, and I thought, that's what I need. I need this up above my desk with the light on when I'm on the phone and do not disturb. And
On the other side, so it's...
yeah. I'm going to point that at the other side, or maybe I'll make another one. I don't know. So what I did was I picked up a couple of USB relays. I don't yet know the details of how they function, but I know that they communicate with the so-called HID, Human Interface Device standard for USB. And then there's a relay on the other side that's perfectly content to switch 120 volts with like 5 or 6 amps, which is plenty for what I'm going to do. This is going to be not very high power. And then, in order to make it not scary to management type people, I've got this box and I've got a switch so that I'm going to have a manual override, and I have a power cord in, and then just plug this in. So it could really, in theory, once someone decides, Alan, take that down, okay, and then I can plug something else into it and control it by some other computer. And what I've been doing most recently is using the mill to take off the inconvenient portions, and I'm going to use the mill to make the penetration for the USB prongs. And so that's what I've been dinking with. And boy, if you want something to just practice messing with a mill in general, plastic is great because you can play games with positioning things precisely and not have to worry about doing something expensive with a piece of work.
Which mill?
The mill we've got in there,
Really?
the Bridgeport.
Okay.
And it's also got very like low pain lessons about milling sorts of stuff, like speeds and feeds. If you do it wrong, you get this melting goo. You do it right, you get chips coming off. And all of it happens in an energy regime that's very unthreatening. Even if this goes spang out of the mill, it's not the kind of high energy failure that you get if you were doing it with steel. So I'm just playing around with it and seeing if I can mill this precisely the way I want. So that's what I'm working on right now and why I'm working on it.
So,
and?
Is there software behind that USB interface?
Not yet. I don't know whether it's going to be that I'm going to have to write a little program that understands USB and registers a particular device, and then I've got to plug that into something happening on my computer the way I want, or whether someone else has already written that. But I jumped and then I looked around. Oh, USB relay. Hey, cool. How does this work? Oh, I gotta look up to whatever. I figure that it's very likely I can find something with Python that already understands how to mess with it. That's what I'm going to reach for first. Okay. But at the moment, I'm ignoring that because the switch will also function. It'll be an override. And so I'm currently enjoying the machining parts of it. When I get finished with that, I will work on the rest. So that's the project thing I've got to talk about. Yes, Gabriel?
When you said the mill, is that how you make a little hole in it?
No, the hole was part of how it was initially shipped. But when I got it, there was a big proud socket there that was where you glued the conduit to it normally. And I just sheared the whole thing off. And that was very satisfying.
What's using that mill? Could you make that hole if you wanted to make another hole? Could you make a smaller hole with the mill?
I could certainly make a hole. The interesting things about using a mill to make this sort of hole is you got two choices. One is you get an end mill or a drill-like object that has exactly the right size, and then you can make something that's really round at a very precise location. But if you don't have something that's exactly the right size, you really kind of need a computer control to take a smaller thing and dig out a precisely shaped hole. It can be done, but it's not the kind of thing that you really want to attempt manually. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about is that I am working on a curriculum for a really basic sewing class. I've talked to a little bit before. I did a presentation on sewing. That's my bag, baby. And the theme I'm trying to elaborate is an awful lot of sewing when you're trying to get something for like an engineering purpose. I want a bag to hold my my phone or my e-reader or something. It's really simple, and by taking on such a simple design, you can learn an awful lot about the process of sewing. And then the next more complicated thing is just simple extensions to the stuff you already know. I'm a big fan of the idea that you learn things well by just finding some place to stand and then inching your way forward a little bit at a time, most of the time staying in areas you know. So what I want to start with is making bags, and then gradually making more interesting and complicated bags, because this is just a bag. Just a bag with some weird shape that you've calculated with some reference to some other object. And so the way this is going is the Alachua County Public Library has a facility where they have a variety of, actually the key is not a variety, they have a bunch of copies of the same sewing machine. And they are happy to have us teach classes in their space. And the first couple of passes, the first pass, they are very content to have this be for members only, while I'm like developing the curriculum. And then they would like to have us teach and teach just in general people. So I wanted to find out from people who are here, are there any people who would be interested in teaching that class? Are there people who would be interested in taking that class? Because I'm looking for teacher assistants so that in my envisioning, they say we have 6 or 8 or 10 different sewing machines. I figure one instructor flavored person per 3 or maybe even 2 students would probably be the way to make sure that people learn. So we got people here who might be interested in taking. We've got people here who might have the skills who are interested in teaching some of it. Anybody interested in either of those? Taking? Okay.
If it was learning how to like patch up like jean material.
The first step would be just make a little bag. We might get to more complicated repairs and things. All right, anybody possibly interested in being a teacher's assistant? All right, cool, all right.
Just to be clear, this is interested in being a teacher's assistant. This is not has any knowledge to share yet.
That's fine. Yep.
Who's the teacher? How are you going to train the...
I would start being the teacher. Well, did I just like make a big noise? Pop, 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 pop. And I am not like a competent sewer, really. I mean, I am what I consider myself to be mid-level apprentice. My wife is definitely master class. And under her guidance, I can do specific tasks pretty competently, and I can explain them very well. I'm good with the patter, and I memorize stuff well. So for the very narrow tasks involved in this class, I feel like I've got decent command of them and can babble about them. So that's how we would start. But part of this is kind of trolling for people who have more sewing skills and would be able to say, oh, Alan, that's a dumb idea. We should do it this other way.
Your wife doesn't want to do it?
Well, she might be interested, but she has some complications with fluorescent lights that make it unlikely that she'll be able to actually go into the facility. So, but that's another story.
Have you looked at simple patterns for those bags, like quilting patterns or triangles?
So what I have done so far is, okay, we got some fabric, trace just a little bit with seam allowance around the device that you want to make a bag out of. So I'm hoping that for this initial pass, that is as complicated as a pattern as will be necessary. I've certainly thought about different ways this could go. Once we get off of the very, very basic stuff, you know, making, you know, you tell people T-shirt patterns or whatever, but that's a problem of success. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to me blather, and thank you for coming.